mostly because I don't know what else I feel like doing at the moment. Let's see if I can actually film some more reaction video before my sister walks in the door. The Chinese show Detective that I do still want to finish reacting to. I only made it to episode 12 so far, which is like halfway through the show. I don't want to finish because I want to finish something. I'm terrible at endurance, and I want to get this done. So episode 13, and this one is a trigger warning in terms of the medications and the misuse of medications, because this one starts to, observations of it, serious side effects from overdose. Those are some serious medications, first time he's overdosed, and it's bad. From the sounds of things, in other words, the water bubbles, the implications imply that Mirror is fighting / struggling with it all too, which is probably making the reactions worse. But like, ouch, that's some serious side effects. Number 2 observation is Tan versus Jajan. Definitive proof that Tan is an avoider when it comes to relationships. That's how he copes. So his reactions to Mirror, not so unique, simply more violent. There was no good relationship between them to begin with, it seems. / because he can't take a breather to calm down by walking away for a while, like he could with other people, because they're external and he can just walk away from them and take a breather and recuperate. Well, he doesn't really want Jajan gone, so he's torn between making her leave and making her stay, complicating things even further. So this does happen with people, where the more you love someone, the more you push them away from everything that you think would hurt them or even just burden them, choosing to shoulder the whole thing yourself rather than sharing that. I mean, that is a thing that happens like all the time in real life. That's what I am prone to do. Some people are like that, and it seems like Tan is definitely like that. Number 3 observation, endangering the safety of, I don't know, translations versus original language. If they're saying they believe Mirror would directly hurt Japan or Jajan if things weren't going his way, or if they're saying that he would just cause trouble that would indirectly hurt them through his recklessness. I think it's the latter, both here and considering what Tan said when he woke up after Mirror versus the doctor part. What I specifically liked about this episode is Tan's reaction when he walks in on dressed up Jajan. That was so cute. And what I specifically didn't like about this episode, there's so much of the focus of this episode being on people that I don't like. I know it's important to understand the story as a whole, but grr, the second time watching this show I ended up skipping all of it because I don't like these people. The further I go, the more I dislike them. They're like so bleh. I just don't like them. Why are so many shows obsessed with spending so much time on the bad guys? And then moving on to episode 14. There's, like I told you before, there's some of these episodes that we can move really fast through because there's, episode 14, observations. Number 1, first proof that it isn't just one instance that Tan has forgotten, and also second proof that Mirror was capable of fronting when they were kids. What I specifically liked about this episode is the consistency of triggers. It's the fire that made Tan and Mirror switch. I like that consistency. What I disliked, number 1, I know it's hard to imagine how everyone would really react to this, but honestly, this is where the story starts getting seriously convoluted and weird, and so much time is spent on this seriously awkward scene where it's being proven that this guy is the dead guy come back to life. I mean, this much time wasn't even spent on the guys coming back to life 20 years ago. Why do we have to spend so much time on it here? Like, they're picking episode 14 to suddenly prove to us that this is possible. I mean, I guess it's because he didn't just come back. He came back in a different body. But whatever. I don't like how long it drags out. It's so uncomfortable and awkward. And then they sweep the third death under the carpet because he's back. So, there's only 2 murders. Like, dude, it wasn't an attempted murder. It happened. Like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't like it. And like, yeah, it's the dragging out of it. And they go on and on and on. And everybody is so awkward. Number 2, that servant. Honestly, I didn't notice him before. But now that he's back, he's one of my least favorite characters. He is so annoying. Number 3, so much time spent on this guy. I mean, Shudders. He's just so Shudders. Why do I have to spend so much time with him? Why couldn't we have spent this time on Tan trying to reason with Mir? Why? Why? Why do they obsessively spend so much time with this guy in the show? Oh, I hate it. What I had questions about. Number one, what the heck did Mir actually do to that kid? Is it another scene like the scene that opened episodes 2 to 5 where the real violence wasn't shown for family-friendly TV's sake? It looks like all that Mir did was lock him in the shed. Yet he's in there choking and hacking and I see no reason for it. So, what did he actually do to him? Why did they act like it was such a huge, massive deal and he was so horrible or something when all he did was lock him in a shed? I don't get it. Number two that I had questions about every time, especially in a case like here, where he's primed and in the position to tell Tan that he's 100% unnecessary, he is still saying, let me help. So tell me then, even though there are places like when he said he wants to trap Tan forever inside, is Mir's ultimate goal really to get rid of Tan? Or does Mir not care whether Tan stays or goes? He just wants to have his own freedom as well. I don't know. I just don't get it. If his real goal was to absolutely get rid of him or to take over or whatever, why even here when he doesn't have to pretend? Why is he still saying, just let me help? And because we can move so fast through these episodes, my goodness, it's only been like 8 minutes. I really am moving fast. Maybe it's just because I'm tired and it's been so long that I'm kind of like, just moving right along, booking it. But this is a good thing because we need to get finished. Episode 15, Observations. Number one, just have to mention here how confusing that is. Where is the mansion? Deep in the mountains, leading us to believe it's like way out there where no one goes. Yet it turns out later it's literally right beside the cliff. Like where the ceremonies took place? I mean, maybe the show did this on purpose, considering the camera angles also completely disconnect the places. But it's a little annoying that they made it so confusing when so much of the rest of the story is overly confusing and already a bit too much to handle. Like, why did they have to make it look like they were like miles and miles and miles apart when they're literally right beside each other? Number two observations. That floor would be so irritating. I hope it played a bigger role than just that one riddle, because wow, the inconvenience involved. I mean, I'm a janitor. I cannot imagine trying to keep that dumb thing clean. Never mind, I'm a klutz. I cannot imagine trying to walk on that thing every day without tripping like 50 million times. Like, wow. Number three observation, a chuckle and a head shake. They're literally, don't touch anything, and then proceed to the next room where they literally touch everything. Okay, got it, guys. What I specifically liked about this episode is the cool display of Tan's intelligence in solving the riddle. I told you there was a place we get to see him actually solving stuff without Mir's help at all. That was cool. But also what I specifically liked, number two, you're not hurt, on your feet, man up. No, hold on, you don't know what it felt like. I like this, because it's unfair of her to act like he's being ridiculous, to need a minute, and he hit the nail directly on the head. You can't judge that so fast when you weren't the one in the middle of it. Maybe he's physically fine, but man or woman, he needs a minute. And that's perfectly reasonable. Give it to him. He literally just about died. Give him a second. It's not manning up to need a second to catch your breath and to be like, he's mentally shaken up. Give him a minute. So I like the way that he put that and that it's in there. No, give me a minute. Hold on. You weren't the one. You don't know what it felt like. What I specifically disliked about this episode? Yeah, there's 5 of them. 1, okay, these guys waking up was a little more relatable, but that guard's reaction? You were killed and are back. He saved you. So what happened? Moving a little quick there, aren't you? Not afraid of this spookiest thing ever at all, are you? Dude? Number 2, so much friggin' time spent on this friggin' character. Third brother, shudders and bleh. I do not like this guy. Ever since he came back, he's a million times worse, and it is so friggin' annoying that they spend so much friggin' time on him. Number 3, sudden slight inconsistencies. He had that violent of a reaction to the first overdose, yet now that we need his character to continue the story, his reactions to the continued overdosing are back burner / barely noticed, if at all. Did you notice that? Like, literally just because he's back in the story solving cases and stuff and we can't have him out of it and unable to think straight, all of a sudden it's like, it was that powerful the first time and now it's just like total back burner. Inconsistent. Number 4 that I didn't like, I mean, I suppose it's because he feels no personal responsibility for Chunting, but Tan, honestly, absolutely no objection whatsoever to Chunting coming, even though you just told Jajan, who has proven how capable she is of taking care of herself, whereas Chunting is literally complete opposite helpless damsel in distress, that it's too dangerous for her, Jajan, to go. Wow, dude, wow. And then his Adele reaction to when she's there after all, like, this is not the first time it's happened, so moving on. Okay. Number 5, seriously! In the middle of an old spooky dangerous mansion adventure, we have to have Changmin and Chunting having a incredibly repetitious discussion about their depressing weight of the world issues again. Why? These two add almost nothing to the story at all, and it is so irritating because on top of adding like nothing, they are seriously detracting. We've pretty much had this discussion like how many times already? I don't want to over exaggerate and say like a million, but I'm sure we've had it like maybe like half a dozen times already, and here we are in the middle of like an epic adventure and we have to have it again. And we really are moving really fast because it's been a little while since I watched this show, so maybe it's just like, not all fresh in my head, so I'm just plain reading the script, but it's only 13 minutes long, and I tend to like to make these at least 21 minutes. So we're gonna move on to episode 16. What I specifically liked about this one, the bullets in Tan's gun, even though like nobody comments on it until ages later, like, guys, I mean, this is a pretty big change. The fact that Tan, who has never had bullets in his gun before, suddenly has bullets in his gun. I like it. But because it takes forever before anybody reacts, why do I like it? Well, yeah, it actually takes quite a while before anybody asks him about it. But note the fact that he's got bullets in his gun now. Just randomly, all of a sudden, even to the viewer, it's not explained. Like, you just have to figure it out for yourself. Use your brain here. Why does he suddenly have bullets in his gun? But he does. What I specifically disliked about this episode, number 1, because I know your secret. What exactly are they implying with this? Tan himself didn't say enough for Changmin to have literally figured out what's happening. So unless he had heard other things, checked with someone else, has studied DID, or is bluffing that he knows more than he actually does, the only other conclusion is that Changmin could also somehow hear mirror. It's also editing out my thoughts here about why Tan backs down, because the whole thing gets confusing in episode 25, so we'll just deal with it there instead. But, like, yeah, what on earth were they implying here? Like, how on earth could Changmin know Tan's secret? That does not make any sense whatsoever. So, yeah. Number 2, the hypocrisy. Jajan, are you serious? You literally just admitted that you were keeping a huge secret from Tan and gave your reasons for why it was valid that you kept it from him. And this is like personal as well as professional, and she's keeping the secret from him. And yet, the second you find out that he has a secret, without having a clue what it is or why he's keeping it from you, you go up to him all absolutely crushed. How could you? Excuse me, Jajan? Like, with a bunch of question marks and exclamation marks. Excuse me, Jajan? I know it's probably that she can tell it's a big one that he's been keeping for a long time, but that does not matter. She is a massive hypocrite here, and this is time number 1 that I got really, really mad at her, and like, there's no excuse. All the other times there was a bit of an excuse, but this time right here, given the fact she just admitted she was keeping a massive secret from him, and then she turns around and gets this crushed and hurt and upset with him here, there's no excuse this time. No. She's just being the typical, emotional, hypocritical girl character in this moment here, and it makes me really mad at her. This one I won't forgive her for. There's no excuse for this. Number 3 thing that I specifically didn't like with so much time spent with characters I don't like. I don't care about these people. Why do we have to spend this much time reiterating how messed up they are? We know! Spend time doing something productive, would you? So many shows make this mistake. I mean, I'm not sure which Asian country is worse for it, and I don't know if they're any worse than American shows, because I haven't watched a lot of American shows lately, but it really irks me when shows spend so much time. I know Korean shows are really bad for it. They spend so much flipping time on the bad guys. I'm like, why? Why? I don't care about them. I don't like them. Spend time with the good guys, the people that I actually do care about and want to get to know and want to see get to know each other properly, please. What I had questions about, just one. Why did it suddenly switch from showing the overdose was so heavily and painfully neglecting both of them, as it should have been, to Amir suddenly being 100% fine, while Tan is still rolling around on the floor? Did it have anything to do with whatever that part meant? Something about it makes me catch my breath, honestly. When the two of them are reaching towards each other? Since it was right after that, Mira is fine. Did something about the way they were reaching for each other and what he said about Tan needing him and all that stuff, is that some kind of symbolic thing that justified him suddenly being 100% fine a second later while Tan is still not okay? Don't quite understand that. I mean, yeah, I seriously caught my breath while watching him do that, but I don't get why he's suddenly fine. And that is the end of episode 16.
不对，你没事吧？不对，你以前看到尸体不是这个样子的。我没事，没事，没事。
Episode 17's reaction. Observations. Number 1. Hanshan clan again directly related to Tan and Mir. I'm mentioning it every time they do, purely because it is a connection, and yet it's never properly explained in the show how it's connected, aside from Tan's dad being connected to it, but this clearly seems to be saying it wasn't just him, probably outright living there with them. Number 2, I find it interesting that while Mir retaliates against people who dare to harm him / his body, it's actually Tan that does the most self-harm. He's the one overdosing, etc., and he's the one that holds a gun to his own head with his finger on the trigger, which justifiably makes Mir upset. Come on. Yeah, Mir is the evil one. And oh, by the way, he's willing to kill himself before he's willing to beg Mir? Really, Tan? Observation 3, Mir says, I always keep my word. Does he? That's interesting. Number 4, I really don't know what to think about how Mir locked himself in the room and sat there not sleeping or eating. What was he thinking about? Just this case, which is so intensely confused it's headache convoluted? Or was he thinking about a lot more than that? This is the first time we see him so serious for so long. The only hints of seriousness this serious was when someone hurt him / the body, and when Tan brought up memories. And yet here he is so serious that he's not eating or sleeping, and even though he's sitting with his eyes closed and he looks seriously sick. But then of course when he opens the door he looks fine. What was he actually thinking about? What did that all mean? Seems like it's trying to portray something, and I'm not entirely sure what I specifically liked about this episode was Mir's rant. Recording this after I didn't write it in the script, but I guess I should be saying part of the reason, the main reason why I really like that conversation between Tan and Mir, we're finally getting a real glimpse into the real heart of who Mir is and what's driving him. I mean, as he's saying, I can forgive you for locking me up, and I can forgive you for all of that, fine, whatever, I don't even care, but I can't forgive you, I can't understand how and why you forgot Mother. Yeah, very obviously, Mir is very much tied up to the memory of their mother and what happened to their mother. And even to this day, this many years later, he's obviously very much stuck inside of that memory and all of that. So it's a very interesting, in-depth. I asked, I can't remember when, what specifically is it that's driving Mir? What is his motivations for life? And I don't know exactly what this means in terms of like why he's a detective and all that stuff, but this is a very interesting, very raw and real and emotional insight inside of Mir's being. So, and I like what he was saying to Tan about the fact that he has just as much of a right to exist. Finally, something that's like Mir without the filter of Tan's opinion, etc. See, I really like that conversation. Number 2 that I specifically liked, this time I can use all capitals. The masking. By this point, Dapan has met and spent quite a bit of time with Mir. Looking back, he knows exactly how long he spent with Mir. So he knows what was Mir's doing and what was Tan's doing. And yet, he doesn't have a clue that it's not Tan. I mean, either that or he's in purposeful denial. Because literally he never once even starts to ask if Mir is doing something. Another thought on this, why is Mir masking this time? He is confident that Tan isn't coming back. We see in episode 18, he's confident about that. So his expression here, his interactions with Dapan aren't quite as good-natured this time, at least at the beginning. And I'm wondering if it's not just because the case has become so much more complicated, but perhaps also does Mir feel betrayed by this point? He knows Dapan knocked him out so that Tan could come back. How has Mir's opinion of Dapan shifted? This is one time where, like, yeah, because Dapan doesn't react to the fact that Mir's out, I'm very, very, very interested to know why Mir does not make himself known. And I'm very interested to know, like, I really wish the show had shown more of Dapan reactions to Mir and what his real opinions and thoughts of him were. I really wish they had let us know. Number 3, Tan, what's going on? You alright? Why wouldn't I be? I'm fine. LOL, the way Mir said that for some reason. The way he looked at his expression and everything right there, I don't know. It was funny to me. What I specifically disliked about this episode, see questions about. I mean, really, I love the special effects. It's such a blur, and I appreciate the confusing feeling when the alters are so blurred and confused, because I'm guessing it feels a lot like that, or worse when it's happening to real systems. But in terms of understanding the story, they probably went just a little too far here with their special effects. Here being what I had questions about. Well, number 1, very brief, but what? What does that few seconds of conversation in Tan's head mean? Is it random snippets of conversations in the past? His medication's making him imagine things? Except it's not the same as when he was sitting in the dye house. Or are they implying there are more than 2 alters? He said, all of you shut up. Not just shut up. How many different voices were there? Only one for sure sounded like Mir. And while Dapan and Jang were both saying his name, Dapan claimed no one was talking when Tan shouted. And the snippets of what was being said sounded like they were talking about Tan/Tan in the present, not him or anyone else in the past. The subtitles that show up on the screen there are they go by really fast, and they actually don't catch everything that was being said in Chinese. I might just go back and like write down everything I could catch. At the very least, I might just copy the Hanja, and then I'll put it so you can see what was all actually being said, because it's actually fascinating to me. Like, what was that? What was that little snippet of, like, that's not shown anywhere else in the show. What does that mean? Number 2 that I had questions about, just out of curiosity, was Tan still moving the body when he pulled the gun out? He must have been, or why would Mir have cared? But then why did it show the fire starting up behind him without anyone actually lighting it? Time and special effects, or is there a meaning in that? It's so hard to know when the shows are centered on mental things, because then all of a sudden the body is sitting there but Tan is inside. So, like I say, Just special effects? Or, like, what exactly was happening there? Maybe slightly overdone special effects. Number 3, and here again, another thing that instantly made me want to know, is this special effect with Tan remembering, which means he's just interacting with his memory and the kid is him back then? Or is that child a third alter? We were led to believe he doesn't remember anything at all about this event. So was the child Mirror? Given what Mirror says about, you couldn't handle it, so you passed it off to me. I mean, given how the picture on the wall is suddenly his mother talking to him, but then next thing we know, there's a child walking in talking to him, and given how it's a kid pulling Mirror, and the kid says this event is how he came into existence, is that child Mirror? Were they the same child? Or Tan then Mirror? But also given that we've never seen Mirror as a child, even though he kind of acts like one, is this just special effects all around? Are they randomly saying Mirror is an age slider, or are there more than 2 alters? Ultimately, so many questions and theories, but I'm afraid of taking off with a story that isn't based on possible realities, so I'll have to stop there. As cool as it all looked, it would have been nice if they hadn't made it quite so confusing here. Considering we're dealing with something that's already confusing without adding special effects that fancy into the storytelling. Oh, but one more question. Why does Mirror's voice echo, but neither of the kids' voices echo? Is that proof that it's just special effects we're remembering? That's neither one of the kids' voices echo. And I'm going to stop there for sure, because episode 18 really gets my blood boiling, and I do a whole lot of talking about it to break it down, to justify or to explain exactly why those scenes make me whoop. So it's gonna have to be a episode or a reaction all by itself, because it's quite long and detailed. So watch out for that one. Bye, and thank you for watching.
我不是早就告诉过你，是你自己选择逃避。我说出来你也听不见。